Reclaiming Timeless Ways, episode 103. Mike Traster, Simon Fuller, and you. Thank you for joining us. Our topic of discussion for today, Mike, where are you going to lead us?
I'm going to sound like some old cornball Southern preacher. Praise and correction.
All right, praise and correction. Where could this be headed?
Well, so as a parent or a teacher or a supervisor, how do you praise? How do you not? What winds up being cumulatively constructive and what winds up making somebody weak and entitled?
Let's just pause because my frickin' bride will start it over.
Well, how do you?
Sorry, I was like trying not to be in the background. Question: can Casey and Jason Davis borrow your tables and chairs that are in the KCHE RV for their daughter's birthday party that we have that's tomorrow that I'm going to go to?
No.
Why?
I don't care.
Okay, are they in the RV still?
Yeah.
Okay. About how
So the
many?
tables are up in there
Okay.
in the main seating area, and the chairs are all below the two.
How many chairs do you think there are?
25.
25 chairs.
Yeah. They're not very good looking, just so you know. Like, we take them out to all the feed the farmers and shit, so I don't know if these are people that prefer the pretty, but they're not pretty.
Okay, and about how many tables?
I don't know. Look in there. I feel like there's used to have like 5, maybe there's 3, maybe there's a 4th. I feel like they go missing. People fall
Okay.
out and they don't come back.
All
They
of them.
grow legs.
We gotta go to Morgan's party. I'm not
Yeah.
swimming, yeah.
Oh,
I'm bringing Chef Dip.
that looks runny.
Good. Everyone will love it.
What? Hey, how late are you gonna be there?
I have no clue. Okay.
I'll just cut out all that because it's still recording.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just take it from the top.
Okay. So praise and correction.
Welcome to another edition of Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Mike Traster, Simon Fuller, episode 103. So glad you're joining us. And the road we will travel today, Mike, takes us where?
Praise and correction.
Praise and correction.
Right.
All right, praise and correction.
So you're a drill sergeant or a coach or a parent or a teacher or an employer.
Sure.
How do you praise people? How much? How often? Where's the limit? How is it done constructively and how is it done poorly?
Interesting.
Yeah. So, well, you're an employer.
Yeah, it's a great question because, and I don't know that I have an answer. I'm going to ramble here a second as I think out loud.
Good.
It can be overdone. I don't know where that limit is. And what I mean by that is, but I feel like I'd rather caution on the way of too much than too little.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that that there's not a slippery slope or a fear of, then what if you don't for a day or two? Wait a second, what's going on?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think appreciation is always appreciated by others.
If it's true.
If it's true, that's an accurate statement. And on the flip side, I've always believed that you can be harder on somebody. I'm speaking from a father. If you also love them and they're aware that you love them. So when you tell them they did good and tell them you love them, it's easier to also discipline or correct them
Right.
when they haven't, because they understand it's coming from the right place.
Right.
And I guess that's a great word to implant in that garden, Mike, in the center of it. And that's if it's true, real,
Mhm.
you know.
So I have this picture in my head.
Okay.
It's like one of the Jack Nicholson characters where he's very hyper,
Yeah.
like a madman.
Okay.
And he's like, he's smiling, but it's completely hyper. It's like 12 cups of coffee kind of a
I've
smile.
seen that smile.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's talking to somebody, let's say he's talking to somebody on crutches or in a wheelchair, and he's pretending to be caring. But he's treating them like they're old, dried up paper. So in his hyper vigilant approach to praising them, he's making them feel helpless and broken.
Yeah.
So when you're overplaying praise, you can actually dispirit something.
Yeah, I would say most of my praise, right or wrong, most of the praise I give
Mhm.
is when I feel somebody has taken it a step beyond expectation.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
historically when I know one of the partners, my partner at the station, Greg,
Right.
he praises all the time and is very good about, well, and maybe I shouldn't use the word praise, is very in touch with, usually when he walks in every day, hey, good morning, how you doing, which is a
Right.
little different. And every time he leaves, have a great night, that's just a feel good more than it is a praise.
Right.
But
I'm sorry.
no, he's good at that piece of it. A lot of mine comes from, and I think it's because of my own expectation of me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's when I feel somebody has stepped beyond the expectation is when I'm
Yeah.
best at praising.
All right. So I have two pictures. One is a math book.
Okay.
All right. So there's this math class I had to take before I went to nursing school called program math. And it broke everything down into all the rational steps.
Okay.
So each time you did one, let's say there was a simple pre-algebra or algebra problem, and however simple that is to you, we're all differently gifted and experienced. So you get step one wrong, and then it shows you why. So you say, oh, okay, I'll do this. So then you get it right. Well, you're giving yourself a reward of recognizing that you did that step correctly.
Right.
So maybe you redo it with some thought 3 or 4 times, and now you're beginning to assimilate it, right? Or a teacher says to you, well, a block, maybe a double block is like that, right? And the teacher says to you, you did that better than last time. And you say, why? And he goes, because last time your fingers were like this. And when they're apart, they're easy to break. But when they're together, they reinforce each other. And your thumbs weren't splayed out, they were pulled in.
Yeah.
So they're more stable. So you did that part right. What did you do wrong? I don't know. Your elbow was up. You're not protecting your ribs. Ooh. And it gives you doesn't hurt you, but he gives you a little hello,
Yeah.
right, with his foot. So it comes in, or his hand, and you go, oops, or, watching Muhammad Ali box. So he was boxing, and his defense was his speed. So he left his head open, which eventually caused his destruction, right? Because he lost his speed.
Yeah.
Which happens from time, but also from getting hit. So it's progressive.
I would agree with that, Mike. In fact, you jogged an asterisk in my mind
Okay.
to what I just said.
Oh.
That is absolutely, it's in my head beyond, if you take a step beyond expectation, but that does have a learning curve to it. So I'm going to use the example. I've got a puppy now
Okay. Yeah.
who's 3.5 months old.
Gorgeous.
So when I'm having her learn simple commands like sit,
Right.
stay,
Uh-huh.
come,
Right.
potty outside, things like that. In the beginning, I praise quite often
Oh, yeah.
because the expectation isn't there. And so it does change. Now, in 2 years from now, my tolerance for her, if she has an accident in the house or doesn't come when I call,
Right.
that changes.
Of course.
So that's kind of the, when
Listen.
you're talking about simple math versus graduated or anything in life, or even an employee in their first few months, they're probably going to get more praise. You've got me thinking with all these little things because they're learning.
Right.
They're not expected yet.
Right.
A 10-year veteran, it's a little bit different, but I still do appreciate them. But I think my level of praise changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the exception there, obviously, if you come home 4 hours late and the dog leaves a puddle on the floor,
That's different.
you're
That's
the
my
one-
fault.
Right. It's you,
Yeah,
not the
I
dog.
rub my nose in it, not the dog. Yeah.
Yeah. So, or like I remember somebody told me one of the more advanced students one day, he looks at me and he goes, "Do you know how you tell when somebody's going to throw a punch or a kick?" And I said, "No." He goes, "You don't look at anything. You diffuse your vision, but you're kind of aware of the center of their chest because it will tell you something about where they're going to move." Really? So he showed me, it showed me again. I heard other people say the same thing. I might have heard 10 to 20 people say that over years. And I'm like, oh, okay. Um, so back to that little math book. If you got 8 steps and you reinforce each one of them, not by being Jack Nicholson and having that zany smile, which makes you feel hopeless, right? But by saying, okay, practice this. Be mindfully, consciously focused in your awareness without being rigid or forced, so that you are reinforcing this part of the pattern, right? And then we'll get on, to the next step. And then if they make a mistake, well, it's a mistake. I make mistakes too. If they make the same mistake 12 times, how come you're distracted? What's distracting? Where is your mind right now? It's not here.
Right.
Yes, it is. No, it isn't.
Right.
Are you not able to comprehend how to do that? No, I can comprehend. So then you're not focused. If you can't comprehend it, that's fine. But if you can and you're not getting it, it's because you're distracted. Oh, okay. So, I'm trying to think of some examples of people that I supervise.
Here, I thought you were losing your focus on purpose to prove the lack of focus.
Trying to make a segue,
Right.
but I think for the most part, the people who I supervised did a decent job, and they didn't need a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
And the few that didn't do a decent job, some of them just weren't going to.
Because when do you think is the right, appropriate amount of praise? When do you think correction is needed? I mean, I think there's some sliding scales to some of that.
Right.
But if you were to answer that simply,
Right.
and I know there's always exceptions, never say never always. There are many times exceptions. I'll correct myself.
Well, I think if somebody's head is quick, maybe they're stressed about interacting because they've had an experience of shame, or maybe they're a little bit hyperactive. Maybe it takes them a lot of distraction to be undistracted, Then you have to slow them down and give them a step by step, kind of like the math book.
Yeah.
And you have to tell them this is what you have to do. Like for example, sterile technique. You have to roll your sleeves up because your sleeves are not clean.
Right.
So if you have clean hands and dirty sleeves over a sterile field, you've corrupted that field. So roll your sleeves up, now clean your arms. Everything gets cleaned 2-3 times, and then you have to put your gloves on in a sterile way.
Right.
So you have to show somebody how to do that. You show them, maybe or if I teach Tai Chi, I'll say, how come I can't turn? Why am I stuck? And I've already explained to them what will limit my turn, which is not rotating your foot. So if you don't rotate your foot, your hip loses some of its mobility. So you make the point of doing it wrong, and then you allow your student to to do your critiquing.
Yeah.
So as you're making these mistakes, like, what am I doing wrong? You have your elbows up. Oh, thank you. Now they're in the teaching role for a second.
Yeah.
So now they know better,
Yeah.
right? Because in that little 0.1% of understanding the form, they took on the role of a teacher that elevated them. Now that's more reinforced.
Sure.
They've absorbed it with some
Ownership on really.
yeah. And then, maybe the next thing, or like, why does my back hurt? Your back hurts because you're leaning forward and your back's trying to set you back into a neutral stance. How come I hurt on the right side? Because you're leaning to the left. Oh, are you sure? Pretty sure. What if I have an injury? Well, that could be true also. You know, so, everything is unique, but I think you have to break things down into steps. I made up a phonics program for my kid. I trained him to read. In 5 weeks, he went from completely illiterate to reading high school books. He was 5 or 6 years old. So the first part was I had to teach myself, which is what are the pieces of visual recognition? You ask yourself, okay, well, what are some of the most commonly seen letters? Like A, B, C, Um, so you start with the simplest letters and then you arrange them. First of all, you want to look at a letter and say, that's an A. So you're sure that's not a B? No, that's an A. You told me it's an A. Oh, so now they're sure of themselves, right? So again, you're reversing the role. You're screwing up so they can teach you, right? So that's like putting cement in a foundation instead of sand. And then you use a bunch of different. What was it? Billy went on a race into space and lost his face. So it's like ACE, ACE, ACE. So those are called blends, right? And so what happens now? If I read that 4 times, right, and there's 3 or 4 repetitions in the line. We've just done 12 repetitions and we're reinforcing it because it's visual and because it's funny.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, how do you, some things you can teach with humor, obviously others you can't, how do you do CPR? How do you apply your hands to somebody's chest? Well, there's a little notch there. And if you push your hands too high, you snap it off, it can puncture the liver, which is bad, so you have to explain that. And 100 other things. Or should I start CPR? Well, no, you need to ask them first. Are you awake? Put your ear next to them or hold a piece of glass by their nose. Are they breathing? Maybe they don't need to have their airway opened up, So you go through steps. You have to be logical, but then you reinforce, you tell somebody that it's good, and maybe you ask them, I know there's 10 steps here, but could you teach somebody that first step?
Yeah.
Oh, where don't you put a tourniquet? Around the throat. Right? Why? Can't breathe. Oh, okay. Are you sure? Absolutely. Um, or, how do you put what do you do with dangerous objects if you're in a room with a patient who's questionable in terms of their potential for violence? You leave everything far away from them that they can't access, or 100 other things. But if somebody keeps screwing up, I don't know. I mean, it really depends. Why are you tired? Are you angry? Are you sad? Do you feel hopeless? Or do you not like doing this? Is there something you'd rather else do? You're probably better at answering that question than I am.
Yeah. It's an interesting question to try and answer.
Right.
Because I don't know that it's a cookie cutter answer. That's why I was even picking you and it's kind of, we're talking out loud through it. And
Right.
I think that is the answer. There isn't an absolute. There is not.
No.
But, like the example of the puppy, to me, it's a sliding scale or a brand new employee.
Right,
You know, there's certain expectations after so many repetitions.
right,
You expect them to know certain things, so correction comes more quickly,
right.
and your praise maybe not as often. I still think it's good to be conscious of praise and appreciation. But also it's a sliding scale based on some of those factors.
Right.
And those are just two examples that popped into my head. But I think you also said early on in this, it's got to be truth and real and not.
Are you what were your sports?
I played football and soccer primarily.
Okay.
I tried a lot of different ones, but those were the two I enjoyed the most.
Right. So in baseball or football or soccer or karate, your foot isn't just on the ground. See, because then you can be moved around real easy, but your toes are like fingers. And your arch. See, when you see a natural athlete or one that's properly trained, their feet grip the ground. They're flexed, even through a shoe, right? So you ask somebody, why do you feel unstable when you're moving? And they go, I don't know. Is your foot gripping the ground, or is it just sort of, are you just sort of
Dragging along.
exactly?
You know?
You literally found the words that I was about to say. Right? Are you just dragging it? Right? It's in the way. It's kind of this thing between
Club.
it's like my book. I'm gonna pull. Come along. So you say to them, okay, so when you do a transitional move and you're shifting one of your feet from here to there, how come you feel unbalanced? Well, I'm leaning, or I'm stiff, or I'm weak, or my foot's not gripping the ground. You know, and I would think that would apply to gymnastics, obviously. You know, so again, you break it down. You know, and then another step, like with my Tai Chi students, I haven't trained anybody in a number of years because I got sick of the people in my class being brats. You know, just 3 minutes a day is 1,100 minutes a year. 0 minutes a day is 0 minutes a year. They went for the zero. Okay, sorry, I'm done. But you catch people doing things right, and knowledge is cumulative. And if you say to somebody, "I want you to learn 6 movements," about 3 to 6 movements in a week, they go, "Well, that's not much." So it's true, but it's going to be about 20 movements in a month or something like. Oh, and so you help them put it together in a way where they see that they're actually assembling something.
Yeah.
You know, um, the we talked about this, the different levels of competence. First, you have unconscious incompetence. So you put a pen in the hand of a monkey, and it's completely incompetent, but it doesn't know it's incompetent.
Right.
It just waves the pen around in the air. It sticks itself in its eye or its forehead or whatever it's doing. It just jabs it on the page. And then maybe you show it, no, you can actually make a shape. And it's confused, but it's captivated, right? So now it knows that it's not competent, but that it has something it wants to do. So it's consciously incompetent, which is better than unconsciously incompetent,
Right.
because it has potential, right? And then it gets through conscious incompetence, and then it becomes consciously competent, where it's another good example would be, instead of a monkey, teaching somebody to operate a clutch on a car.
Sure.
Right? You're just terrified and ignorant in the beginning. And then you're being purposeful, but it's kind of jittery. And then you're paying attention. You've driven a clutch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it sort of starts to become automatic.
Yeah.
And you're coordinating the clutch coming up and the gas
Right.
going down,
Right.
you know. And I think that one was frustrating as a kid for me. You know, the first time, a few,
Yeah, I learned at a Dalton Auto Center where I worked as a high school kid, and I had to go on parts runs and do
Oh,
different
okay.
things for the shop.
right,
And they had an old Chevy I think it was an S15, which
okay,
could have been an S10, but I think it was before the S10s. I thought
Okay.
that's what they called it. And
right.
oh yeah, I don't know how I didn't burn that baby up. Then
Maybe you did.
maybe I did. Thank God it was for an auto service shop. But honestly, you're right. And there's a process. And then I got to a point where I actually thoroughly enjoyed driving a manual transmission.
Because the last step, well, not the last step, but the next step after conscious, it's unconscious incompetence, and it's conscious incompetence, then it's conscious competence, then it's unconscious competence, right?
Right.
And this is infinite, various levels of mastery.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I'll never be Jackie Stewart, but I can drive a car reasonably well.
Right.
Right? Jackie Stewart could probably take a turn in his day twice as fast, at least, as I could.
Right.
You know, I'd be in the ditch.
Right.
And he'd be, no, that's not how you do it, laddie, look. You know? So, and I think praise is natural reinforcement. And I think it needs to always be there. Sometimes, I think it needs to be more subtle over time. So, like, if you have a coach, right, and maybe they're teaching you to pace your breathing. You're a distance runner. And they just do this after 4 or 5 days of struggling. They just nod at you. And that's a more adult. They're not teaching you to crawl.
Right.
You know, you've rolled up, you've lifted your head, you've rolled up, you've crawled, you've kind of hobbled and fallen down on your butt 12 times. Then you're kind of leaning on the chair or the wall and you're walking, sort of. Then you're walking and you get a little reinforcement. Now you do it naturally. You have that
Right.
unconscious confidence. So, and then you have the person that either they're indifferent or they're defiant or they're destructive. I don't know how much of that you put up with.
Yeah.
You know, at some point you have to state that there's a limit to that.
Yeah.
You know, and then the question is there something else you can do here that we would agree that you would be useful, you know, or a different sport or a different study, a different activity, or is this just not where you belong?
Yeah.
You know, and you're not being mean. Right. You're being honest. You know. So
I liked your levels of explaining the competence or lack thereof, because that is the sliding scale that I was trying to kind of define on,
okay, yeah.
in my mind, where the praise and correction comes from.
Right. Now, if you're talented at something, like I'm not a naturally talented artist.
Right.
Right.
Nor am I. We share that in
Okay.
common.
Yeah. Now, I became consciously competent as an artist, but not unconsciously competent very much or very often, because I'm not that talented.
I became consciously incompetent. That was as far as I made it.
So we're both stumbling and crawling.
In consciousness.
Right.
We're very conscious of our inability to do artwork.
Yeah. So occasionally I could draw a face that you could tell who it was.
Not me. Never
Yeah.
made it that far.
Oh, well, that's about it. You know, I knew it was a person and not Mr. Ed, you know, or something like that. But I had a friend who could look in the air and see a person's face and draw it.
My daughter and my wife are that way.
Oh,
So half the family's got it.
right,
My son got my genes. But we're good elsewhere.
right.
But
And
anyway.
the one thing that I did find was that when you get into a space of quiet mind, ability flows into you and through you better, much better. You know, and this is a teaching that's universal. It's not a, it's, I mean, we think of it as esoteric, so we say it's an Eastern teaching. It's just, it's how the mind and the body work together, with drawing or writing or anything else, you know. Like if you wanted to, if somebody said to you, between now and tomorrow, will you write one sentence?
Yeah.
Go on that line and watch Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Watch 10 different or 15 or 20 different things. Watch him stand at the plate, pick up a bat and hit him.
Yeah.
Now, what I want you to do is I want you to allow a sentence to assemble itself in your mind that you want to grace the page.
Yeah.
Right? So you're allowing it to assemble. So now you say, well, how do I do that? So you say, well, let's see. How about which words would work for Ruth? Say, what about adequate? Adequate? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
That's Babe Ruth. He's extraordinary. Oh, extraordinary. Is that a potential word?
Yeah.
I think so. Okay. So was he shy? Shy? Ruth? No. He was certain.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never used this. This is right now, right? So you say, okay. So was he meek? He was, focused.
Yeah.
Was he jittery? He was relaxed and sure of himself. How much power did he have? Like a mountain. So what did I just do? I asked a bunch of questions. I kind of went from one side to the other. And maybe you would say, come up with something like, he was like a mountain holding a bat.
Yeah.
Incomprehensibly great. How did that come out of my head?
Yeah.
That's not bad writing,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Well, you give yourself some room,
Right.
and you say, well, which words are total shit, which are mediocre, and which actually evoke a response in you of, yes,
Right.
that's it.
Right.
That's what that guy was, And so now you've given this person a methodology of finding words. So then you ask them, so if you made one sentence a day like that for a year, and then built 2 or 3 sentences around it, could you have a 15-page, beautifully written piece of work on Babe Ruth? Well, you started off with one sentence and they go, I couldn't do that 5 minutes ago, but now yeah. You made me see how I can do that, So I guess, and then the question is, well, how do you adapt that to many different things? Math, science, language. I might be able to adapt as long as you didn't want me to conjugate any verbs in French or draw a face, But so, like in your teaching and praising and correcting people as a boss, what are the steps that you go through?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've never really thought about it in the sense of, I guess, writing it down, so to speak, or having a map, a set of guidelines, so to speak. Just kind of goes back to what I was mentioning. It's a combination, I think, of expectation and achieving or succeeding those, or exceeding those rather. And I think that scale slide. So when you were talking and the seriousness or the nature of the topic or the task, when you were talking about somebody prepping for surgery, correction needs to happen immediately if we're working on another human life. If I'm teaching my daughter to color inside the lines, I think there's a little more grace there. So age, experience, what's happening. And so I know I've been thinking through this. What is the formula? I don't know that I have a formula or an exact, but within the last year, we've had a couple new employees. So I think there's a little more praise
Right.
and correction.
Yeah.
You balance them. And as they mature in the process, I think maybe a little less praise when there's certain expectations, and also hopefully a little less correction.
Yeah.
And it's a sliding scale. But you're maybe a little quicker to correct on certain topics that they are expected to know too. So I don't know, Mike, that's an interesting one. You had me peak from the beginning and I still don't know that I have an exact answer.
So you're not formally systematized, but you are systematized.
Right. That's what I mean. I'm trying to say, I feel like it's an 8. I know when I do it, I don't know how to write that
Okay.
down in a policy.
All right.
So maybe that's not very helpful for someone saying, but I want to know how, write it down.
Well,
Here's my steps.
Yeah, I guess it's sequential. It's sequentially going from the general to the specific.
Yeah.
Right? So you teach somebody how to use a 35 millimeter camera, film camera.
Right.
There's 5 or 6 or 7 little adjustments, you
Yeah.
know? And so you would say, well, what do you want to do first? Well, you want to hold the camera safely because it's $500 or more. And then what do you want to do? Well, how come you can't see anything? Oh, you got a cap on the lens.
Right.
It's not letting light in. Oh, okay. So now where do you point it? Well, point it. They look at you like you're stupid, and they say, well, or me, They say, well, you pointed at what you want a picture of. Good, And do you know about the shutter speed? Oh, what's that? Well, in different kinds of film absorb light quicker or slower, and you can adjust how long the shutter stays open so you don't overexpose the film or underexpose it. Really? Yeah, see that? 1/10 of a second and the 1,000th of a second. Wow. And sometimes you can get them to open for a second or longer. So ooh, that's pretty cool, And so one little piece at a time, they kind of get it. Or how do you make a subject? And I've read a little bit about that, but I'd still say I'm less than a beginner. It has to be it has to be interested.
Yeah.
And centered. But they say if it's completely like arithmetically centered, it's boring. Isn't that interesting? So, progressive. I think as a supervisor or an employer or a mentor, you have to have a vision of what that person needs.
Right.
What are their fundamental tasks?
Right.
What's that stairway of accomplishments and competences that they have to gain before they can begin to be safe,
Sure.
or effective, I guess that's enough, unless you have something you want to add.
I think that's enough.
Yeah.
All right. That's a wrap. We thank you for joining us for another edition of Reclaiming Timeless Waste. Have a great day.